Hello and welcome to part 5 of the Castle Forest colour along from Ivy and the Inky Butterfly. So first of all, I've just been on my computer to check which part we were on, and I noticed that in the playlist there are 2 part 3s and they're both exactly the same video, they've got the same views. It just seems like YouTube's duplicated them for some reason. Not sure if that's just on my computer or you can see that as well. So please could you just quickly check this colour along playlist and see if you can see 2 part 3s that are exactly the same, and let me know so I can sort it out with YouTube. I'm a bit loath to delete one of them just in case it deletes both, because it's obviously some glitch somewhere. But anyway, this is part 5. And in this part today we're going to be working on these forget-me-not flowers, which I believe they are down here, and there's also a few at the top of the page as well, and the leaves that are surrounding them. So the colours that I've chosen today, it was actually a bit of a farce because I'd forgotten that I am using polychromos on this, and I went straight to my Prismacolors, picked out some beautiful colours for both the leaves and the forget-me-nots, and then I realised that I'd chosen Prismacolors. I had to go back to my polychromos, try and convert them, and then they wouldn't convert because polychromos don't have an awfully good range of pink. So I've tried my best and I've got some decent colours out of the polychromos. So the colours that you will need are middle purple pink and light magenta. So we're going to start off with the flowers, and I'm going to zoom in. We'll start off at the bottom of the page. Excuse my throat. Hay fever again. Okay, so yeah, let's zoom into there. So taking our darkest colour, which is the middle purple pink, we're going to ignore these triangle shapes for now, and we're just going to concentrate on the sort of heart-shaped petals of the forget-me-nots. Just going to give it a quick sharpen. And right at the bottom where those triangle shapes sort of begin, you're going to be taking the middle purple pink and giving it a nice layer of that beautiful deep pink colour on both sides. Don't forget to leave your hazy edge to blend your next colour in. So very deep, hard pressure down at the bottom, graduating up to a light sprinkling of colour. And then taking your light magenta, we're going to go over the edge of the previous colour to blend it. And we're not going to go right to the edge. As we've done on most of our elements in this page, we are going to again leave a nice little bit of white at the edge. So that'll just set our contrast off perfectly. So very, very simple for these flowers, but really nice and graduated. As I say, polychromos are really, they haven't got any decent pinks. This is about the lightest pink you can get, and it's quite a purpley pink. I'd love there to be a more of a blush pink. The colours that I was actually going to do, here's my little swatch chart, with the Prismacolor was this one here. And this was carmine red, blush pink and then blush pink, and I thought that was beautiful, sort of quite a corally type of pink. But this is what we've ended up with, no worries. Still really, really pretty, and it's going to contrast well with the blue that we've put down on both the top and the bottom. I was actually going to go with these 3 colours from the polychromos, which are the pink carmine, the rose carmine and the dark flesh, but I thought that even though they were really pretty, they were quite similar to the colours of the castle. So we've kept it to these purpley pinks. I know that might not be a true shade of a forget-me-not, a pink forget-me-not. They're quite light, aren't they? But I quite like how these look. And we are using polychromos for this. I didn't want to deviate from that. So we'll just carry on doing all of our petals in this same technique, leaving that white at the edge. So I hope you've all had a really nice week. I've not been on much, as I said last time. My little boy was just coming down with chicken pox, and he's now gone back to school, went back to school yesterday, so he had a week off in total, well, including a weekend. And yeah, he's fine now. Thank you everyone who asked about him. He's still got his little spots, his little scabs, but they're all healing now, and he was able to go back to school. I was quite surprised at a lot of your comments, actually, from my followers in America, that you have a vaccine for chickenpox now, sort of as standard. We don't have that over here. I don't know whether you can pay privately to get the vaccine. You probably can. But on the NHS, our sort of standard vaccines for kids don't include chickenpox. I don't really know why. It's going to be a money thing. It's always money, isn't it? But you would think that they would just include that, because kids do go through quite a lot with chickenpox. I mean, it's obviously much easier than it is to get when you're an adult. I think I might have told you last time that I actually caught them when I was pregnant with Max, when I was 20, and that was awful. But still, he's had a really bad time with it this week. We weren't sure whether one of his spots was infected. It didn't look kind of green or anything gross like that, but it was really, really angry looking, quite red. It was about the size of a 5p piece, or a, what do you call them over there? A dime. And it was looking not like the others. The others were quite, quite pale and calm, and this one was quite angry. So we took him to the doctors, and the doctor wasn't really sure whether it was infected or not, or whether it was just sort of a further stage of chickenpox than the other spots. But Max did have a very high temperature, and the doctor he did say that if Max hadn't had that temperature, that he wouldn't have thought it was infected, but it could have been. Again, it could have been the chickenpox virus causing the fever, but we just didn't know. And it was a Friday evening that I took him to the doctors, and I didn't really want to go all weekend not having any antibiotics if it was an infection, because Max was really struggling with it. He was crying a lot. He felt ill, didn't want to eat, didn't want to do anything really. He was in pain. He had a stomach ache as well, so it was all sort of getting on top of him. And the fever gave him hallucinations, which that happens to my kids. I don't know about yours. If you've got children, let me know if this happens to your kids, but it's always been the same. Whenever they've had a fever, really high temperature, they always hallucinate, and it's really scary because it's sort of like they're having a bad dream, but they can't snap out of it. And you really have to console them for ages and calm them down and sort of get them to realise that it's not real. But apparently that is quite common with children and adults with really high fevers. When that fever spikes, it can cause sort of visual hallucinations. But yeah, anyway, so he didn't have a great time with it. But as I say, he's back to school now. His spots are all healing up nicely. I was a bit worried about him going back in case he got picked on or anything like that. But I think a lot of the kids have got them sort of going round at the minute, so I think they all understand. But you know what kids are like. Children can be rotten at times to each other. So I was really worried in case he got picked on, but I think he's been okay. It's also getting warm again this week. I did mention last time that it was cooling down a bit, I think, because it had got really hot. And now it's warming up again, but it's not as hot as it has been, so quite pleased about that. After this colour along today, I'm going to be going out into the back garden and treating the fence. So painting the fence, basically. I've got a wooden fence, and it's not been painted in a couple of years, so it needs a good coat. So I'm going to be doing that today, but at the moment it's just a little bit nippy out there, so I'm doing this quite early and waiting for it to warm up. So as you can see on this flower, I'm doing all of the dark bits first, and then just going in with the lighter bits. Sometimes it's quicker that way than keep swapping pencils all the time. Now, I'm actually wondering about the background of this. I want to know your comments, what you think. Because obviously there's a lot of elements on this page, and doing a background is going to be tricky, getting around every single little thing on the page. And I want to know whether you want to do that or not, because I think it would look really nice just left as it is, as like a standalone image with no background. But then again, you might want a background putting on because it's not as, you know, vibrant and lush and whatever as my last colour along, which was completely filled with colour. So I want to know what you think. Should we do a background on this, or is it going to be too complicated, too time consuming, and is the background colour going to take away from the colours that we've got on the page? Is it going to be too busy with colour? What I was thinking of doing, I don't know whether you guys follow Julie's Passion for Colouring on YouTube, but I've just come across her stuff today, and I was looking at one of her most recent tutorials that she did for colouring. It was like a really dark indigo blue background. It was actually in this book. It was on the Cherry Blossom page. See if I can find it quickly. Anyway, there's a page in here that's got Cherry Blossom going all the way across the page. And she'd done a really dark indigo blue sort of border around everything, a very narrow border, very dark, and then sort of very lightly coloured the in-between bits with the same colour. And then she put a bit of Mediterranean blue over it, just a layer, and then just burnished everything with white. And because of that sort of outline of the dark blue, and then it kind of looked faded into the white, it looked really, really nice. And then she did some Posca pen dots as well for like the nighttime sky. So we could do that. We could do Julie's idea there on this page, or something similar anyway, but it's got to be a darker colour, because I think the colours that we've put down really need to pop. I don't want them getting lost in the background. So maybe I'll do a poll on the Facebook page or on Instagram or somewhere, and you can let me know what you want to do. So I am coming up to my 30th birthday, and I just do not want to be 30. I've never not wanted to be an age so bad as I have not wanted to be 30, if that makes sense. I wanted to stay 21 forever. When I was 21, that was like my optimum age. I wanted to stay that age forever. And when I turned 22, I was really sad, but not as sad as I am to be turning 30. Now, I don't mean that in an ungrateful way, obviously. You know, there's some people that don't even live as long as 30, and, you know, it's scary to me because that's my 20s gone. And I've basically spent my 20s bringing up my kids, which is obviously the most important job you can ever do. But it does feel like, where have they gone, you know? And 30 to me, as stupid as this sounds, being married with 2 children and having been an adult from quite an early age, it feels to me like I'm now a proper adult turning 30. It's like, it's getting on a bit. That's how I feel. It's a bit silly, really, I know. But yes, 29th of May, that's my 30th birthday. I'm thinking of actually doing some sort of event on the channel, maybe a giveaway, but I'm not sure what to give away. Just like a birthday bonanza event. I need to give that some more thought quite quickly, really, because it's coming up. I was hoping to get 10,000 subscribers on YouTube by the time I got to my birthday, and it might happen. We're quite close, so fingers crossed. But yeah, which birthday did you dread? Let me know in the comments. I feel really awful saying dreading a birthday for the reasons, you know, some people don't make birthdays, you know. But I feel bad for everything anyway that I say. I've just got really awful anxiety, so I'm always second guessing and questioning everything I say to make sure I've not offended anyone. But yeah, I don't know. 30 is just a huge number to me. It's my 20s have gone. It's just quite sad. Maybe I should have a little goodbye party for my 20s. if you've also been following my colour alongs so far, then you will know that I've spoken quite a bit about my weight and issues with body image. And I think I've mentioned in the past that since I've been taking the mini pill, it's called Sorel for any of you that are on it, I seem to have just banged a lot of weight on. But my doctor really does not want to admit that it's the pill that's causing this weight gain. They're quite reluctant to do that. It's all, oh, you must be eating more, you must have a bigger appetite. And yeah, maybe so, but at the end of the day, not to the extent where I've sort of banged on 2 stone out of nowhere. Because I've always ate quite badly. You know, I'm not a healthy eater really. You know, I always eat quite a lot of crap. But I've never sort of banged it on at this rate. You know what I mean? It's like I feel like my features are sort of disappearing and I'm getting quite bloated looking, and I'm not liking it at all. But at the same time, I haven't got enough willpower to really do anything about it. So I've decided I'm going to come off the mini pill after my birthday. I'm leaving it till then because I don't really want to stop now and then have like awful cramps and sort of horrible nausea and stuff on my birthday. But it's only, you know, a couple of weeks away. So I've decided to wait until then and I'm going to come off it. Now, the reason that I went on it in the first place was because I suffered with awful pain around the time of the month, and it would often the pain would actually start about a week before my period. So it was like 3 weeks out of the month I was in awful pain, and it just seemed relentless really. But to be honest with you, I'm just going to have to deal with it, I think. If I want to try and lose a bit of weight, I mean, I have sort of attempted weight loss programs and stuff, but I can never keep it up, and then I just let myself down and feel like a complete failure and just go and eat a load of stuff. So yeah, I do have a problem with food, and I also think about my weight an awful lot. So I don't know. I'm going to come off it anyway and see what happens. See if anything changes radically, and then I will sort of know that it was that. If you're on Sorel or the mini pill and you're comfortable talking about it, please comment below and let me know if you have experiences coming off it, and how it worked. Was there a lot of pain? Did the weight did it seem to drop off after you stopped taking it? I have looked into other types. So there's the other types of contraception, the non-hormonal coil or something like that, but I've read enough horror stories about that, internet again, that I don't really want to go on that. And it's probably just something I'm going to have to manage with painkillers, I should think. I don't know. Don't take any of my sort of choices as advice, for God's sake, please. If you're going through the same thing, just go and see your doctor, see what they say. But I think that's what I'm going to do personally. I'm going to try it anyway. I mean, I can always go back on it, but I don't think I'd want to, just in case I banged even more weight on top of that. But yeah, let me know. I suppose it's good being tall because I carry the weight quite well, or I always have done anyway. But I'm starting not to now. I'm starting to actually look big. Which, you know, it's not awful. I'm all for body positivity, just not for myself. You know, I would advise everybody else that it doesn't matter what you look like, and it's on the inside that counts and all that. You know, I'd be the first one to say that, but when it's you, sometimes you have this inner monologue of sort of berating yourself, which I'm really awful at. So anyway, let's get off sort of maudlin topics like that. Right, so we have actually finished all of our bottom flowers now. We're going to go to the top and do the ones up above the castle. So we've actually got 2 full flowers and 2 half flowers here, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. So let's start over here. I suppose I could have you do this as your homework project, but we're only on 19 minutes so far. So I think we'll just do them together and get these leaves in. So I know that there are quite a few of you who enjoy talking about the good old horror films. I've had a few comments before when I've mentioned new films that I've watched. As you all know, I'm quite a big horror fan. And the most recent horror that I've watched, I don't think I've mentioned it on here yet. It was a few weeks ago, but I don't think I've actually mentioned it, was a film called Terrifier. And it's out in supermarkets and stuff, but it has a very sort of grungy, culty, 80s B-movie kind of feel to it. So it's not like a film that you would expect. You wouldn't see it in the cinema or anything. But it's really, I loved it. So basically what it's about is a character called Art the Clown, who appeared in a film called All Hallows Eve. And that was quite creepy. It's one of those really sort of uneasy films that's very, very gory and very sort of, the screen's all kind of scratchy and old, like you're watching some old kind of video camera type footage. And it's very, very creepy. The actual clown costume, the clown face itself is the most creepiest clown face I've ever seen. So if you're not into clowns, don't go and Google him. But yeah, really, really creepy. So he's in this new film, Terrifier. And basically, if you've seen It by Stephen King, Pennywise the clown is basically just like flipping Krusty the Clown from The Simpsons. Once you've seen Art the Clown, Pennywise is not scary. He's really sort of psychopathic, and yeah, it's freaky. Very, very gory. Lots and lots of blood. Gore isn't usually my thing. I'm not opposed to watching it, but it's not my favourite kind of horror film. But I think it's just more the psychological element of this clown. He's just absolutely insane. He doesn't speak, but he does a lot with his facial expressions, which really creep me out. So anyway, if you are a horror fan and you haven't yet seen Terrifier, go and watch it. I still haven't seen Insidious 4. Need to see that one. I don't know if it's going to be any good. Insidious, the first one, was really good, and then it sort of got a little bit crapper as it went on. There's a film that I want to see that's coming out soon. It was premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, called Hereditary, and I've seen the trailer for it and it looks awesome, and everyone's saying it's just super scary. I don't know whether this is just Cannes hype, because you get a lot of films that are really hyped to be scary, like that Veronica on Netflix, which was crap, and then it's not. But I do want to see it. It's got Toni Collette in it, and she's fab, and it just looks scary, and I know that there's a twist in there somewhere, so I'm really eager to sort of find out what it's about, what the underlying twist is. So if you've seen any good horrors lately, let me know. So my kids are going to have another week off soon, even though Max has just had a week, for the school holidays, which is always at the end of May. So, because it's my birthday at the end of May, as I mentioned, every time I had a birthday at school, we were on school holidays, and it always used to annoy me because I never used to get any presents, because everyone would be like, oh, I forgot, and they came back off the holidays. Whereas if you had a birthday in school, you're far more likely to get presents that day. So, as a kid, I was sort of annoyed. But yeah, every end of May we have a week's school holiday down here. It's called Whitsun Week. I'm not even sure what Whitsun is. I need to find out, but it's called Whit Week anyway. And then soon enough, it's going to be summer holidays, which normally in the UK, the kids break up for summer sort of around about the 20th of July, and then they go back in the first week of September. So Not got any plans for anything this year, no holidays or anything. But I'm hoping we can get out somewhere, you know, even if it's just for day trips and stuff. I am desperate to go to Scotland. Has anyone ever been? If you have, please tell me about it. Please tell me where you went, what it was like. I'm desperate to go. I really want to see some amazing nature sights, if that makes sense. I want to see these huge mountains and steep valleys and just beautiful nature. That's what I want. I feel like I need that. I'm craving it at the moment. It's probably something mental health wise, but I feel like I need to breathe some fresh air, see a lot of water. So yeah, I'm desperate to go to Scotland. Claire Holloway, who I've mentioned a few times, another colourist, she went to stay at the base of Ben Nevis, I think. Is it Fort William? Something like that. And her photographs were absolutely beautiful. And I am desperate to go. So I'm hoping we can do that. It's really far away though. As you all know, I'm in the Midlands and Scotland is just way, way up. So it's going to be a long trip. And as you might know from my story on the blog, I have a lot of problems with IBS and obviously my emetophobia. So if I start feeling ill and I start feeling sick, then I start getting panicked. And it usually stops me from travelling, you know, far away from home. So, I mean, when I went to the West End in November, because my son was performing at the Shaftesbury Theatre, I was het up about that for days beforehand. I can sort of forget about it in the weeks leading up, but when it comes to a couple of days before we go, really, really sort of panicky, very panicky. That I was going to be ill on the train or need to, you know, if I've caught a bug a couple of days before and then it comes out on the train. Just horrible. You know, if you've got these kind of phobias or anxieties, health anxieties, you'll know exactly what I mean. And it just gets you het up more and more. And we had to go on this train journey for a couple of hours, and thankfully the entire weekend went absolutely smoothly. It was actually much smoother than I ever dreamed it could be, even on a good day. Because, you know, even when I'm sat here at home or whatever, most days I've got pain and symptoms, but nothing. So it was almost miraculous, really, that I felt so good. Obviously, the old anxiety and depressive thoughts kick in, like, well, if you do it again, it's not forced to be the same, it might be worse, and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I had a lot of things like Rescue Remedy and stuff like that in my bag. Those things that you press into your wrists to stop nausea and things like that. Anyway, let's go back down to the bottom here and pick up our greens. So the ones that I've chosen for the leaves are Chromium Green Opaque, Permanent Green Olive, and Earth Green Yellowish. They all have really long, weird names, these pencils. So starting with our darkest, which is the Chromium Green Opaque, we're going to start at the bottom of our leaf, coming up in the middle slightly, just sort of branching out either side in a sort of shape like that. And then next colour, Permanent Green Olive. Doing the same thing, just sort of following the curve of the leaf. And finally, with the Earth Green Yellowish, you should have a sort of cone pointed shape white bit left. Just fill in most of it with the Earth Green Yellowish, leaving a slight bit of white if you can find room. You can go back in with the darker colour, deepen it a bit. But what I wanted to do was, because we've got quite a lot of light, very bright green on the other leaves on this page, I wanted to sort of finish the page, give it a border of, you know, deeper greens, just to create a little bit of difference on the page and to contrast with what we've already done. So exactly the same technique on all the leaves. So these are really quite dark, sort of mossy greens, earthy greens, rather than bright greens. I think they set off that pink really nicely as well. Sorry for the little lulls in conversation here. I'm desperately trying to think of stuff to talk about, but mine goes blank as usual. That's why I like it when you guys ask questions in the comments, because then I can write them down and remember to answer them on the next video. It gives me something to talk about. So something that I've just started watching, I'm on season 2 now, is The Handmaid's Tale. And I actually didn't even know about this till a couple of days ago, and then I've sort of binge watched it. But if you haven't seen it, it's a dystopian story set in the near future in the USA, which is now called Gilead. And what's happened is the birth rate, for some reason over the last couple of years or whatever, has just dropped. People are finding it very, very difficult even to get pregnant, and then even when pregnant, a lot of the time they lose the baby. So some sort of fertility issue happened. That's all kind of backstory. But basically, America was sort of overruled by these pseudo-Christian people who decided that going back to, I don't even want to say going back to the Bible, because the Bible never said to do all this, but going back to sort of those times where women had no value apart from to procreate. And basically now women are not allowed to work, they're not allowed to have a bank account, they're not even allowed to have their own name. They have to work as handmaids, which is basically another name for a surrogate parent, but just, you know, an awful way of doing it. So they have to provide children, if they're fertile, for the high commanders and their wives who can't have children. And they get treated absolutely horrendously. It's quite horror movie-like in some ways. And it's awful. It's because a lot of the time you have the really modern soundtrack to it, but yet they're all wearing clothes that look quite like Amish and oldie worldy. And it's just to sort of remind you that this is set in today's time, not a long time ago. And I think it's quite apt for circumstances at the moment. People are quite worried about how things are going, you know, Trump and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to pretend I know a lot about American politics, but I think the consensus is with The Handmaid's Tale that it's something that actually could happen, you know, in real. You know, women could have their rights revoked. It's not that long ago since women had no rights at all. And yeah, it's very, very thought-provoking. It's really, really well made. I think if you haven't seen it, I would definitely urge you to see it. In America, it's a Hulu original. I think Hulu's a bit like a Netflix sort of thing. But we have the second season premiering on UK TV on the 20th of May, so I've got that on record. So yeah, that's been an interesting watch. There's some awful scenes, you know, because they even use sort of punishments, old punishments and stuff. Very, very biblical, sort of stoning and things like that. but yet it is set in today's world, which is really jarring, quite creepy, scary prospect. So it is the royal wedding on Saturday. We're on Thursday today, so a couple of days away. As you can imagine, everywhere in the media it's just Meghan and Harry, Meghan and Harry. And as I said before on previous videos, I'm not a royalist. I'm not opposed to them really, just I'm not really bothered, do you know what I mean? But it's absolutely everywhere. Is Meghan's dad gonna turn up and all this kind of stuff? And no one really cares, I don't think. The media make it out to be, you know, like of national importance, and I don't think anyone's really asked. But I've got my opinions. I don't know whether to speak them. This is a colour along. This is colouring. There's no real point. Suffice to say, I don't know about Meghan. I'm a little bit, I don't know. She doesn't give me the same vibes as Kate, put it that way. Anyway. Let's move on. So we've done our leaves. Now there are a couple of leaves here to do as well, which are exactly the same type of leaves. They're on both sides. So do those in those same colours as well. But I just want to move on to the centres of the flowers before I finish this video. So I've not actually chosen the colours yet. I need to get my pencil case out and have a look. So we've got pink. We want something that's going to contrast but not be too jarring. Let's have a look. I quite like incorporating them with the lighter greens and those sort of oceany blues by using a nice light phthalo green. So I think we might do that. And then we've got phthalo green as well. So if you take your darker one of the two, which is the phthalo green, this one here, we can just do a little round circle like that in each centre. Oh. And then using the light phthalo green around it like that. I quite like that. I think it ties it in nicely with the lighter greens that we've used already. Obviously, come back in with that darker one just to deepen it up again if it's gone a bit light. And then with the darker phthalo green, I think I'm just going to do a little bit at the bottom of the points and fade it up into white. Something a little bit like that. A nice sharp pencil needed for this bit. Okay, I really like that. I think it looks really sweet. I'm not sure what we're going to do about the lines here in between, because they actually go off and join up to this sort of scrolly looking thing, which looks like it should be metal or something. So we'll figure that out next time. But I think we'll leave the centre of these flowers white, because I quite like having that bit of white in the middle and not colouring it all in. So don't forget, we'll do exactly the same thing on the top. I'm on 41 minutes now, so I'm going to be quite quick with this because I don't really want to have too long of a video. So very quickly, just going around these parts, coming in with that lighter phthalo green. And then the little points. See, another thing on that background issue is that around the castle here we've got some stars. So it looks like, at least in this castle area, it's nighttime. I don't know if that's true in the story text. We'll have to have a read and see. But if so, that indigo blue sort of background would look really good. Okay, so just before I go, let's finish off those leaves that I mentioned at either side, just so we are finished with the leaves ready to go next time. Do this quite quickly, you can take your time. And I think as for homework this time, I might ask you to complete the other leaves around the castle, because we've actually already done the exact same leaf pattern already in the last video, so we know what colours to use. Can't remember them, but I'll put them up on the screen when we get to that bit, so that you can see which ones to use. Okay, so yes, homework. This part here around the castle has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaves around it that need colouring in. Now the colours that we use down here for the very similar looking leaves, we're going to continue those colours at the top there as well. So up on your screen now will be the colours excuse me, that we used on these leaves, and your homework is to complete the 5 leaves around the castle. So I really hope you've enjoyed this part of the colour along. We've got some beautiful flowers. I think next time we're going to be concentrating on this kind of filigree thing around it. Let me know if you've got any ideas for that. And I'll see you next time on Colour with Claire.